You live in a farm out in the middle of Ontario, or I think you said northeast Ontario, north
Southwest, yeah, Southwest Ontario.
southwest.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's now, yeah, close to, from Toronto. You just go towards Lake Erie, and um, it's kind of in the middle of it's in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And you specialized in integrating Western and Eastern medicine. You have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, which is, I think, sports medicine, you said,
Yeah.
and a doctorate in n- naturopathic medicine as
Yes.
well.
Hmm.
You decided to travel across the world seeking knowledge on the mind body medicine from sheikhs and masters of or experts in their fields
Hmm.
across the world. And I think you implemented that very thing, finding gold in hidden places out
Yeah.
there. Um,
I like to I when I was since I was young, I did have a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity, and I like to listen to everybody. Um, After a certain time, there's just people who talk and don't walk the talk. So I had an interest in finding people who really were genuine, and I love someone who's just passionate about their specialty. So I like to find those people and spend time with them. I don't like to tour as a tourist. If I go somewhere, I like to kind of really get to know the local population and the local foods, the local transport, and live among them so I can understand things a little bit to some depth. And I started doing that early in life.
you currently live on a farm, as we said. What made you decide to leave the city life or suburban life and even go past that?
So for many years, while I was running uh, pretty large integrative medical centers in Jordan and in Malaysia. And what we always found was there was so many obstacles for people to become better, obstacles to cure. So I was giving advice on, okay, what you need to do is you need to exercise. Well, how do you exercise regularly? Best thing to do is get a friend, get a companion who does some regular activity in the day, do things together. Okay, well, you know what? I don't have a car. Okay, so now you're living in suburbia somewhere, and to get from one location to your friend requires a vehicle, and then uh, you have no other route except it's car centric life. So now loneliness and isolation is a definite issue. So now you have the problem of getting reaching a certain physical goal. You also have a social impediment. Um, every single thing that it required for me to help people, there was too many privileges that were necessary in city life or suburbia. But traditional communities and traditional living bypasses a lot of that, where you still wake up in the morning, you go out, you have an early morning because you have animals, you have to go feed them, or you have to go outside for some reason because it's an early day. So you naturally go outside. You have circadian rhythm set because of the sun, and then you have other people who are working in that capacity outside without having to book appointments. Like if you ask a friend right now, you want to book an appointment, even like with us, hey, does I want to meet you. Oh yeah, how was next Tuesday? Oh, next Tuesday. You know what? I'm booked here. How about the Tuesday after? Actually, no, I'm booked for that Tuesday. I was like, okay, let's try Wednesdays. Okay, Wednesdays are actually I have a fixed schedule. I play this particular thing with. Okay, all right. And you're like talking a month in advance for like this 15-minute meeting with somebody that you know. So social interactions are developed through small, brushes of with you and that person in casual settings. It doesn't have to be booked that way. And traditional living was always like that. People saw each other. That's actually the point of the masjid too.
And you found that if you went further from the suburban and the city life and built this farm with multiple animals, chickens and goats and donkeys and gardens, you're planting vegetables and
Yeah,
fruit,
yeah, we're growing
that
things with our own hands.
this is both for your own benefit, but then you're saying your customers or your clients themselves have found benefit in that. And then they just can even show up to your farm.
Yeah, people come. Right now, I'm still reintegrating. Like we're just resettling back in Canada. I couldn't have done this if my wife was also not this like wonderful. animal lover who is totally passionate about this stuff, because I could have tried to convince her, but she's like, if she said no, I'd rather just live in a city. Then what was I gonna do? So she's actually the one. Her and my daughter and my children are really in love with like this nature and these animals and stuff. So, and I actually don't deal with them. I just know I love that stuff, but I don't have time for it because I'm also, I have my own um, work and projects going on. But it fit well with everything that we believed and we talked about it. Like, what would you like to do? And I said that I'd like to implement the teachings that I've learned from so many people into one place and allow people to see it instead of me talking till I'm blue in the face. Just come and you'll see it, and everything makes sense now, right? And you taste it. That you taste eggs from the farm, or you taste some goat cheese that's from the goats that you milked, and you see how important it is to hike and to breathe fresh air and see the stars, and have your day centered around your salah. Um, it's everything makes sense, so I don't have to say anything. That was my goal. The fact that my wife and kids are benefiting so much from it and taking care of the other parts, everything comes together. And honestly speaking, no one can do this alone. I feel I'm fortunate that this has worked, but for most people, I think Muslims should actually get together and try to do these things together. I was looking when I came back to Canada. I went to the U.S. I went to all these places looking for other Muslims who would be interested in having this type of a project where Muslims could come and improve their health and reconnect with their spiritually and fix up their health problems. But nobody really understood the focus of mental health at the time. This was about 3 years ago, and I went everywhere, man. It was in the middle of COVID, so it was before COVID. So people were not understanding the importance of your your perspective and and the mind, the strength of the mind, and the holistic aspects of living that influence the health and longevity. So nobody really kind of bought into my project, and I just got sick of it. I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna do it myself.
So is this idea yours? I love this. Is this idea for Muslims to come together, buy a large plot of land, and almost reinstate this village farm type of lifestyle?
It could be. I originally, this is like 20 years ago. I had more than 20, maybe 25 years ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago. I actually spoke about all these people. I was known as the guy who was crazy about this stuff, and I was trying to tell everybody we should do this, get land, develop it, and figure out what we want to do. But I think I was a little bit um, maybe too passionate, or I was written off. So I thought I'll just go overseas, travel for now, and it's just come full circle. But most of my friends and people of that age bracket, I think they've moved on and they have families, and they're comfortable is, as they are. So I don't expect anyone to, you know. I'm already out of the system, and I didn't want to come back and re-enter the rat race. So that's why I actually took the the step in moving out to just doing it. And if anybody wants to come, ahlan wa sahlan.
Is
So
this lifestyle affordable? It sounds like it's a privilege to be able to go buy
totally,
a plot of land, buy
yeah,
a bunch of animals, and live off the land.
it is a privilege. It's a lot more possible in the United States. That's why I was considered the United States. I was going to come. There's a project like this actually. There's a couple of projects like this in the United States that I actually was in touch with. I was going to go. I went and saw some of them. I still plan to. If I come visit you, I'll come. I'm going to go to one of them. It's in Austin, Texas, and
Nice.
done by a Christian guy. And because land is a lot more affordable and there's less regulation. In Canada, it's very hard. So it's a lot more privileged. That's one of the reasons I had to go further out of Toronto too, because land was a little bit more affordable. And whereas in Toronto, this is literally impossible to get. Because I'm also building a facility. I'm building like a health facility, like with a dojo and a place where we can train young guys and then make wudu and do a bunch of things together. It's not in my house, so it's like separate from my wife and kids.
I see. And so how are you able to maintain your, modern lifestyle or modern working while
Hmm.
also living so far away from the rest of civilization? That's the main reason people move and live where they live
Yeah,
is
man.
for employment.
It's amazing. I consider some things. I consider some things miraculous in my life, but not miraculous because they are miracles in themselves, but because I never knew the truth of the teachings of our deen, and then when I went to implement it, it actually happened. To me, that's a miracle because I didn't think it was possible. And so one of the things that I learned from one of the shuyukh, just from his repetitive message, Imam Darqawi actually mentions this a lot, um, that like just hankering after the dunya will never lead us to our goals. We have to make a sincere intention for Allah, and the risk will come. So I've seen that over and over again in my life, and it's particularly true when coming back to Canada. I went through actually a lot of difficulty. Coming back was very hard. Being overseas for so many years and then just coming back and seeing if I can just get a home and get land and make all these particular this vision come true. But I didn't go about it the in the way that a person would, hey, let me see if I get my job here, and let me see if I can, um, uh, make enough money, and then I'll pursue this. I had the intention that to be a physician that can sincerely fulfill my oath as a physician to help, take this amana seriously and help patients. When I was in medical school, I met this doctor. She was a Jewish woman. She passed away now, but she was also very well traveled and a very spiritual person and very well accomplished. Her name was Dr. Weidenfeld, and I asked her one time. I said, among all the treatments that you've seen, what is the most superior and deepest form of medicine that you know of? And she broke it down like this. She said, at the molecular level, you can have, uh, uh, or actually, she said, at a surgical level, you can have certain amount of change that you can make physically the body change, and that's a good level of treatment. And then if you want to go a little bit deeper, go to the chemical level and use drugs and these things. It'll force the body to go and to do certain things. If you want to go deeper, do use natural forms of similar things, phytopharmacology, pharmaceutical, uh, and molecular level medicine from natural sources. When you go deeper, you go into acupuncture and homeopathy. These are qigong, energy movement. She said, but the deepest form of medicine is the mind. Once you can change people's perspective, every single cell in the body is connected to it.
Why is that?
The way the mind works.
No, no, no.
How?
Why is it the mind that's the deepest form of medicine?
Why is it? That's a good question. I guess we still have to understand that. We don't understand the placebo. We don't understand how a person can have a belief system and how their health can change because of it. But it's true. The research is solid on it, and definitely in uh, uh, my understanding and take of medicine, this is what I've migrated towards as well. If you can help people, help people's perspectives and their worldview become balanced and right and correct, that is what the Prophet ﷺ brought to us, and it's going to solve every ill that we face. From um, you look at the people of Gaza, man. Like, how can a person have his everything be lost and still say, Alhamdulillah, I'm in pain, but I'm happy, and they're not suffering from the anxiety and depression that we living in our $1 million mansions and our all these luxuries in our life. We can't sleep at night. We can't, because why? Because something in our life is not perfect, or we're obsessed with some detail. There, it's to be content, to be happy, and that is something that inherently brings health. Of course, there's going to, if you get a traumatic injury, that's not going to be healed with your mind. However, the pain you feel, how much you suffer from it, how fast it heals, all that, yes, is connected to the mind
It's all
completely.
mental. Ha-
The ruh, how is the ruh connected to the mind? Um, That's the whole world of medicine. We don't understand. Medicine doesn't understand ruh. It actually doesn't even believe in anything like the spirit.
The soul. So how then? If you said you don't really know why, but then how do you change people's mentality and perspective to treat them?
Yeah. So, like, oh, I found that in even though these, I was in very heavily like me and a medical doctor were the ones that ran these integrative medical clinics in Jordan, and even in Malaysia they were like it was integrative medicine, but we were working with medical doctors. And times when patients came in, over the years, all of everything used to go would inevitably go back to perspective. So someone came in for um, from anything from rheumatoid arthritis to something to do with the you know ulcerative colitis or some type of intestinal problems to cancer, anything. It always came back to I'm suffering, and how do I fix myself, and why me, and what am I supposed to gain from this, and I want to go back to my life, and I want this, I want that. And Allah sends this to us so that we're reminded about Him and we come back to Him. And once people have this trauma and this suffering, and it leads them back to Allah, then that's when their happiness begins. And I ended up finding that that was such a central part of what I was doing, and how deep the effect and benefit of that was, that I saw that this is medicine, man. This it all has to come back to this.
So what have you learned from the clients that you've worked with so far, and what have you found works? Are
Mm-hmm.
you saying that life with gardening and planting and farms,
Mm-hmm.
this is the life that's best for your health? Or what
Yeah,
are you
so
saying from your work?
I'm saying that there's a number of obstacles to cure. People have problems. For them to get healthy, you have to remove certain obstacles. So if a person says, "Oh, I live in one of those cage homes in Hong Kong, right? And I have diabetes," dude, you you need a place. You need a place to be able to get certain steps in. You need some exercise. That would be an obstacle. If he can't leave this area that he's confined to, then your health is going to get worse. So now physical movement is throughout the day is an important component. Okay, so maybe you can get that in suburbia. Maybe you have you live somewhere where you have a car, you can go and to the gym, or okay, that's not an obstacle for you. Another person might say, okay, you know what, I can't sleep. Okay, so you hear caffeine in the morning and popping pills at night. We really need to give you sunlight. You need to get your circadian rhythm properly. So I live a place where there's no windows, and I can't afford anything more. So that's an obstacle to cure. Another person may not have that. So for people who don't need this, usually the privileged don't need all of these different uh, like assistance to get to their cure. I'm not. I'm the farm life may not offer them some of these things. However, it may offer them. Um, I'm not talking actually farm life. I'm talking about communities that are outside the city where you're in touch with nature and you see one another. There's a very interesting book. Okay, it's called A Patterned Language. Have you heard of it?
We all know the health benefits of turmeric. Now you can get them in capsule form at Cure Your World, infused with black pepper and black seed powder. That makes it amazing for your joints and cartilage health, boosts your brain function and memory, promotes your heart health and cholesterol levels, and improves your digestion. You can check it out at cureyourworld.com or on Instagram at Cure Your World today and use the Ansari code Ansari15 for 15% off.
Okay, it's written by Christopher Alexander, and a friend of mine named Atif, in Jordan. Some of these brothers were really into this book, and I because I was already inclined towards solving problems that I felt were important among my patients and in society in general, I really got into this book. You should definitely take a look into it. It basically talks about patterns in your environment that must be designed to solve problems. Otherwise, if they're not done, then it will lead to greater problems in society. And so that community has to be designed in that method. So car-centric communities where you have to drive everywhere, and you will remove certain other benefits like if you have a
Like
child.
walking.
Yeah, from walking, but for other things too, from socialization too. Like if you have a road that divides your home and then the the neighbor across from you, then it's inversely correlated. The amount of traffic that crosses that road is completely inversely correlated with how well you know the neighbor across from you. As soon as the traffic increases, you don't cross enough or feel safe to cross enough to know that neighbor. But people who don't are not divided by such roads end up knowing them a lot more. And a parent will never let even his child cross one road to go to the park because of traffic. So
So
uh,
just like in addiction, the best thing is to create distance between you and the substance.
that's
You're
one.
saying for the cure to add positives in your life, the best thing
Hmm.
to do is remove resistance
That's
between
right.
you and the substances.
Right.
This is beautiful.
Flowing,
Yeah.
flowing with things that work, and nothing is created like that in the city. It's done through city planners who have their own agendas and their own restrictions and all this red tape, which they themselves are frustrated with. Like they can't even cure. Like they want to figure out, oh, how to solve homeless problems and make tiny homes, and but they have so much red tape they can't even do it. And they have all these incentives and grants, and the provincial government is telling them to do it, but no, the cities can't even do it here. So everything is hijacked around like because of cars, various interest groups, um, their own them trying to fund their own municipalities. So it starts at it's the design really makes a difference. And as physicians, if we're sincerely trying to help people get better, that a lot of as many of those factors that we can solve needs to be there. The your perspective and your belief of the world has to be in line with with what the prophets alayhi salam have taught us about the oneness of Allah and reliance in Allah. Your nutrition has to be good. You can't have be a great Muslim and believe in Allah, but just don't have any protein in your diet. Okay, you can at the same time you
Why,
can't have all
what do
these
you mean
things.
by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, there's certain macronutrients that we need in our diet to be healthy. You need protein to be able to sustain your muscles for certain functions of the body. You have to have certain vitamins to help, the pathways function properly. Uh, you have to have fat in your diet to produce hormones. You have to have all these different things. You can't just say I'm going to be healthy in all those ways, but just not sleep. I
Uh,
can't do anything as for you as a physician if you don't sleep.
You can't be a proper Muslim if your diet produces a hormone imbalance that causes you to be more susceptible to your emotions and decreasing, for example, your character, how you're treating
Yeah,
people, because your hormones are imbalanced. How
yeah.
could you be a proper Muslim? Is
Not
that
just
what
a
you're
home,
saying?
not just a proper Muslim, a proper human being. We can't. We have needs. We have human needs. So we have to have all these things in uh, in the right amounts and in a balanced way. And
Because it's interesting. I've never heard anyone say, and I've actually said this on the previous podcast, that my changing my diet has helped me in my religion. And
absolutely.
right now, I'm hearing, at least what I think I'm hearing from you, you just said something like, if you have this bad diet, you can't be a proper Muslim, which is interesting.
So okay, in Chinese medicine, they have this mind-body connection and is really deep. There's schools now at Harvard. I think they're called psychoneuroendocrinology programs, where you can actually study mind body medicine and all the research and stuff associated with it. So this is a real science. But the Chinese were well on top of this years ago. They have formulas that are particularly designed to help the body in some way, which actually affects your character. So it's not just about you having a positive attitude. No, if your organs are not well, then it will produce certain things. I was just speaking to a friend of mine on the phone on the way here, and he was talking about um, he's worried about his family in this way and his relationship with his mother and his father and relationships were his particular worry, and that worry consumed him a lot. So without him having to say anything, I'm sure his digestion is affected, because in Chinese medicine, the link between relationships and worry come from a weakness in your digestion. the stomach spleen organ. So you can actually strengthen the stomach and spleen through herbs and diet and certain verification lifestyle modifications, and that increases your ability in your worry, how to be less worried. Similarly, if people had a lot of anger, and they were constantly irritated, there's a formula in Chinese medicine. It's called free xiao yao wan. It's called free and easy wanderer. Like he's like the guy who wanders a planet, free in a relaxed, chill manner. That formula helps the liver. It helps for it to detox faster, which we don't talk about in Western medicine. We don't have anything for this type of medicine. That what's a choleretic? How do you help bile flow from the liver? We don't function this way in Western medicine. The Chinese solved it. So if you help the liver function smoother and better and help more bile flow, your attitude of irritability will decrease. So yes, this is Eastern therapies. They're brilliant in this manner. The mind body connection is in they connect them.
Okay, can you tell us all these connections? Do you know them? What's the heart? Can you clean
The
the
heart,
heart?
yes, the heart is fire. It's impulsiveness. It's love. But it's just like fire. It can go excess and go. The energy of fire is upward. So when the heart is imbalanced and the fire is too high, then you have racing thoughts. You also have a not good sense of boundary. Your love can consume you and others, right? It's
Lust.
love, huh?
Or is it lust? No?
No,
Love.
love,
Love. Okay.
love can, just like fire, it consumes everything around it, right? Can become out of control. I just did out of love. All right, man. But that love is hurting me. It's right. It's out of control, and that's what flames are, right? They're flames of love, and they go upward. So people who have the heart energy out of balance, they'll have oftentimes heat on the upper body of theirs. They'll be wide shouldered, right? Their body. Well, I can tell when a person comes in, usually what kind of constitutional type they have, and what kind of illnesses they have if they're not well balanced. If they're sometimes it's very archetypical, like they have an archetype that they wide shoulders, very curled hair. So like the Afro American uh, general population has a very hard type. They have wide shoulders, very curly hair, and that represents the heart energy. And the heart energy is a lot of
Passion.
animation, action, love, and enjoyment. But it can be out of control. It can become something that is impulsive. It doesn't it's not as strict and cold and calculated. The lung, however,
Hold
is
on.
the
Can we
okay.
pause right there?
Yeah,
Because this is very interesting. Outside of the African American archetype, too, but the heart. So what? Which is interesting that you're able to the physical attributes has to do with these archetypes.
absolutely.
It's
Your
incredible
color,
what you're saying.
the way you talk, what time you came
Are
for
you
your
talking about your
appointment.
skin color?
Absolutely, and your complexion, right?
No. Wow.
So it's not about just the color of your skin,
Okay.
because within a particular, if you have a family who has children and they have 5 children, the child among whatever skin color of the melanin in their skin is, that it doesn't matter, but relative to um, uh, within that family group, how people are, you can tell one is more towards one than the other. So for example, let's say
Let's take a
a
Daisy
white boy,
family.
a
Oh,
Daisy, okay,
okay.
okay, all right, let's take a Daisy family, or a
Yeah,
color
because
that you
some
can,
of them are like extremely white,
yeah.
some of them look Arab, and then others are, darker complexion
Right. So some
within the same
if
family.
it was a in that family, if there was one of the children were again curly hair, right? Because I used to do a lot of pediatrics. When a child walks in, and it's a bubbly girl, curly hair, and kind of a ruddy complexion, very talkative. I know she's a hard type personality.
You said
It,
ruddy-ick
yeah,
complexion?
she has like redness in her.
Red. So you care about the skin undertone as well. I think
Yeah.
mine is blue. That was
Yeah,
a joke. Oh, yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, compared to others of her siblings, you can tell. So
Okay.
her other sibling might be more pale, a little bit more plump. Her hair will be flat. She hides behind the mom, right? She's not opening up as fast, right? She's worried. She might more the earth type.
And
So
what's the
it's
earth type?
earth type is though, like I was telling you, worry, relationships, digestive illnesses. The hard types have heart problems, like just like people who have that great bounciness and animation to them. They have heart problems. They lean towards heart problems. The people who have the stomach spleen will lead towards diabetes or have more of a digestive complaints.
And sorry,
Those
the
who are
stomach, spleen, apologies, is the earth type.
digestion, call it, yeah, is the earth type,
Okay.
right? I'm just trying to simplify it. The lungs, for example, are kind of cold people, very organized, very cerebral, think through things, very logical, but they're not as when you say, "Hey, Ahmed, let's go take a trip to 3 hours away and go hang out with so and so." They're like, "Man, it's not part of my schedule. I had to tell me a week ahead in advance." They're not as spontaneous, but they get a lot of stuff done. They're cold. They're calculated. They can keep on doing. You can talk to them in that level, but they will have weaknesses in their immune system. They'll have weaknesses in their joints because anyways. I don't want to go too far into that, but anyways,
No, you
yeah.
can. But and what's their character type? What would they look like if they came into your office?
They have longer limbs, smaller shoulders, square, kind of a square head, square face. It's not square, rectangular, right?
And what's their skin complexion
It's like
type?
it's white, quite white.
It's quite white.
Yeah, it's the it's the
That's
it's the lighter one.
okay.
Yeah.
Did we go through all of these? I think
No,
there's
no.
water. I think we're
There's
missing
kidneys.
water.
Yeah, there's water as kidney. Yeah, it's darker, very skeptical, right? Very uh, um, cynical, right? They can they it's also oftentimes seen in older people as the kidneys become weak. Your constitutional type can change. It can change as well, so you can go towards more retention of water, and your attitude will reflect the state of the kidneys. You know,
Are those the all the
heavy side
elements?
lower. So there's five. Um, the kidney, liver, lung, earth, heart. Yeah.
Yeah, those are all. So what comes? It's like a chicken or the egg thing. What
Mm,
comes first? Is it the organ problem or is it the
mm.
personality attributes? We're trying to build more studios, hire more people, and create more shows that you guys will love and enjoy. If you guys want to invest in us and support this work, then go on patreon.com/Ansari podcast and support us today.
So people have a constitutional type, and they are born a certain way. There's a certain nature to them. Then there's the nurture aspect of how your life circumstances. You could be totally cool guy, everything's fine, but you almost get into an accident, and you something horrible happens. You're attacked by a bear, and suddenly your constitution changes after that. You become always in this like traumatic state. Any sound, you're you're on high alert, and during the attack you end up urinating and wetting your pants, and now you have a incontinence problem, and then your body type changes from maybe what it was to something different after this traumatic episode, and now you're leading towards a kidney type issue because of the fear or trauma that happened. So people can change, but
And
generally
is this
speaking,
a dramatic change or is this just in
yeah,
this focus? Because what you're basically confirming for a lot of people is
yeah.
events in their life, they genuinely came out the other side not the same.
Of course. I always in my practice go back to, oh yeah, what was happening at your life at that time? What was happening when that problem started? And this is how a lot of my understanding of mind body medicine came. During that illness phase, something really hard was happening in their life. It was I was going through a change in my job. I was changing my um, profession. My mom was sick, or something really stressful happened. All these factors came, and that's when the illness started? Well, it started from a mind body uh, illness that then affected the body, and it'll affect the body in the way that your organ of compromise, is the one that you hold the most constitutional strength in, it uh, begins to deplete itself. So yes, then that change can happen. Sometimes it could be from a drastic event that can also happen. Like a traumatic effect, immediate acute event. So it all depends. But I did see in that all my cases always go back to a something that was very stressful, and that is a perspective thing. So like a person came in who yeah, I remember he had eczema, had psoriasis. You know what's the difference? Psoriasis is a lot harder to treat than just eczema, and you have this person had his eczema, his psoriasis here, and his knees. So we're going through the
You just
case.
mentioned arms, elbows, and knees.
Yeah, elbows and
Just
sorry.
for the people who can't see.
Oh, okay, yeah, good. So we were just talking. It takes me time, like 2 hours sometimes, to go through a case. And he was like, "Yeah, this is happening, that is happening, this is happening." And then I was like, "Well, how does it feel? What's your experience?" And he was saying, "It feels like I'm carrying the burden of the world on my back." I was like, "Okay, all right. And what's that like? Give me, explain that to me. Picture it for me." He's like, "Not only is it on my back, it's completely crushing me, and I gotta get up this mountain." And I was like, "Okay, how are you getting up the mountain?" He says, "So heavy." He closes his eyes because people go into a particular state when they're talking about their health and their mind. And he says, I'm like almost like I'm like leopard crawling up the mountain. It's so heavy. But what do you do when you're leopard crawl? You're on your elbows and your knees. That's where the friction is. So the body ends up seeing its stress as so real that it physically manifests in the body.
Wow, subhanallah. So you said you're taking this patient through a process. Can you take us through that process? What do you do to heal someone since you're not taking patients right now?
um, so, number one, understanding that the mind and your perspective is such a powerful uh, is a powerful factor in your health. There's a good book for it there by it seems John Sarno. It's quite old now, but he talks about it talks about just back pain. It's called Healing Back Pain, and he also has another one called Mind Body Medicine. He actually there's some exercises in there that he does. Some people can are able to help their health just by reading the book, because just to be able to understand this connection, that's healing itself. But people who don't know it, I definitely want to learn and understand their mind. And once they have that explanation of the things that are bothering them, then definitely as a Muslim, I remind them of Allah's goodness and having trust in Allah, and that whatever is happening, many times my patient will be crying inside my room, and of course, as a human being, you're moved sometimes too. But generally, I have a pretty cheery attitude with them. And sometimes they ask like, "What are you happy about, man?" I'm telling you all this like deep stuff. And I was like, "Because good is gonna happen. Allah is drawing you to Him." So when people have this understanding of the good of Allah, and that ajib al amr al mu'min, like all the matters of the believer are good, then healing begins. So number one, understanding and having a really healthy and positive attitude towards Allah, and really
Uh,
having conviction that Allah is in control of everything, and He's doing this for your khair. Um, it, a lot changes, and then I go through the
Can I
physical obstacles too. Yeah, go ahead. Was it?
please take us through the next steps? Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's circle back to that. I just want to make sure that I completely grasp what you're saying here because this is something that I think I personally struggle with.
Okay.
I think for many of us, especially as the years go on,
Mm-hmm.
you go through so many different events
Yeah.
that are not good
Yeah.
that it is very difficult to subconsciously, it's the subconscious that's the issue for the
That's right.
Muslim. Because consciously you're always, yeah, yeah, of course Allah's doing well by me. How do you convince yourself to a deep level that Allah is going to do what's best for you? And
Mm-hmm.
as we know the hadith, check me on how strong it is. That Allah inni inda husni dhanni
عند
abdi bi.
أنا عند ظني حسن
Yeah, and
أنا عند ظني عبدي بي. That's right.
yes, that I am what my servant thinks of
Thinks
me.
of me. MashaAllah. Yes, and that's what we're talking about. How do you though convince yourself of it? So so the first sometimes we are there's many ways, right? Of course, suhbah, who you sit with, the ulama, the positive people that are in your environment. You have to surround yourself with really good people who really see this, who are not flustered by any event. Like this didn't go either way. Like you know, right? They might be irritated, but they say, Alhamdulillah, I can see the good in it, or I'm going to be patient, or they're very positive, and that influences us having those type of people around us. But sometimes it's too hard to do it on our own because our organs, our health is compromised. So this is where the art of medicine comes in. A good practitioner can take your case and sometimes help you break through that barrier, that place where you're stuck. That could be through traditional Chinese medicine. That could be through homeopathy. That could be through other forms of medicine that help to activate your organs. Um, and then there's other things. Yes.
That's interesting what you're saying, help to activate your organs. So are you talking about hijama and the
Yes,
likes?
sure. Hijama, acupuncture, um, various various methods that we use, but herbs too. Herbs do this. Like I told you, something's called a choleretic. A choleretic is a herb that makes bile flow through the liver better. And so once your liver sends bile to the gallbladder, and then it releases that bile to the colon, that the soluble fiber that's in your intestines at the time, the large intestine, takes that bile and helps bind it, and then you have a good bowel movement because of it. So the we could do an entire hours on looking at the importance of looking at your stool and your bowel movements to tell your health. It has secrets in it. But if your bowel movements are not healthy, then you're not able to number one, for example, uh, get toxins. Your liver is there to remove toxicity from your body. You're not allowed able to leave. Um, the toxicity is not able to leave your body. So now you have a buildup. Second, if you don't have enough soluble fiber, then when the bile does get dumped, it gets reabsorbed into your body. So now you have higher levels of cholesterol. So your cholesterol does not increase. People who have high cholesterol don't have high cholesterol just because they have a high fat diet. It's because they don't have anywhere for the bile. Once it has that cholesterol and goes into the colon, it doesn't leave because nothing binds it. It gets reabsorbed. So it's not just from diet. It's about from how much the liver is producing and taking out.
So
So
how do
then
you you're saying how do you fix that then? You
you have to
increase your
fix it through.
fiber?
You can use herbs because that help the liver flow, the flow of the bile better, called choleretics, which Western medicine doesn't have a concept of. It's an Eastern use of herbs. Second, you use diet by increasing, for instance, soluble fiber in your diet. Third, for example, you could be having not enough liquid. I have one patient who I tried everything with him. I gave him all this medicine. I, did all this uh, therapy with him, intervention after intervention. And one time we were just having lunch, and he was just like, in 30 seconds had a meal done. And I was like, dude, you inhaled that meal. Do you even chew? And he's like, and he's like, no, I got it. I'm on the rush, and I eat. If you don't chew your food, I don't. It doesn't matter what I can possibly give you. This is a building block. It has to be there for things to function properly. So it's part of the investigation of how you're digesting, how you're eating, how you're everything has to be there.
You
So
have to
we do
chew
have to look at
slower. You
chew
literally
chew
have to
many
break.
times. I actually gave him a number. I said chew 21 times. Every bite you must chew. It must be like liquid. And now
Wow.
you have more surface area. The stomach acid in your stomach is now has ability to digest that food, right? Because it has more surface area, and so it'll be broken down. And yeah, problems of gas, bloating, and everything is solved. Don't drink when you eat. because it dilutes the stomach acid. So um, yeah, there's all these things have to be there. So you have to go through the mind. You have to go, if they can't do it themselves, you help them with remedies. If and then on top of that, you have to look at the lifestyle. Then exercise comes into it. Light, everything comes into it. And I'm being in practice for so long. I guess I'm just tired of telling everybody over and over again. So I'm at a place where I was like, let me just do it. Whoever wants to come see, come see.
Oh, and this is where the farm comes in, is what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. And how did you learn this? You said that you've traveled the world to discover this knowledge. What did you
hmm
do? Take us through this journey and through your discoveries.
So healing and healing medicine, the martial arts, they're very connected. So historically, many kung fu masters and people of the martial arts were healers, right? So they're already connected in some way, and those are two interests of mine. Like I have a sports medicine background. I was very heavily into competitive mixed martial arts since very young, and I was fascinated by all these guys talking about their abilities to not just heal, but through touch, but also harm through touch. And like you'd see that someone on the internet, it's like he'd touch someone, and they'd like fly off or something. Um, so I was like, bro, I'd like to see that for myself. I mean, I think all of us are like interested in it, but um, I I was living in Jordan at the time, and I got uh, had an opportunity to travel through India and then pop over to I went all across the north, all the way south to Calcutta, and then I got a cheap flight from Calcutta to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia I went through all the way down to Singapore and then up all the way to the top and Thailand and some areas there too, hunting some of these people down who I had heard of to touch hands with them. So in the martial arts, you touch hands. You meet the master and then you check. Because I had a strong taekwondo background at the time, so I wanted to see, all right, these guys are making these claims. Can they like do it to me, right? Like if I saw your videos. Like let me see if I can handle you. And I touched hands with many masters. So it was there that some people turned out to be very real to me, and some things were very they were obviously false. I met charlatans, and some things I'll put in the question bucket. I'm still not sure what I saw.
Well,
Um,
who were the very real to you? What was very real?
so qigong is a very traditional, very old Chinese art of self healing, and you have certain movements that you do to strengthen your body, the limbs, the tendons, the organs, the breathing, and that helps healing occur. Um, I found those exercises to be incredible. I for a good almost 5 to 10 years, I used to I used to travel around teaching those qigong exercises to large groups in um, like as a naturopathic doctor, but I kind of broke it down as a exercise of self healing. Not specifically qigong, but I did learn qigong. I learned Mandarin while I was with them, so I could learn from my teachers. So that I definitely believe see it. I've seen it work. I teach it also when people come and stay with me. Like when people come stay at my property, and again, disclaimer, please. I'm not ready yet. I will not be able to accept patients on my property right now. So if anyone asks you and reaches out, it's like, get me his number of how I can stay at the property. I'm not taking patients. I don't even want. I don't even want that information to be out there. But because we're talking about it, inshallah Allah will allow me to get there one day. Those who come will do these exercises with me because it's part of their healing. And these exercises work so well. Like the ability of the body to heal itself, the resilience is very strong. And
What are you guys doing? What's the
they're just
exercises?
movements. They're movements, but on top of that, there's a certain state of mind that they tap into. And
Because
people
of
have
these
written,
movements.
because these movements, they're very old. They're like 4,000 year old movements, and they've hacked it, right? They know how to do certain things. to activate certain organs. Acupuncture also does this. There's also a book, an interesting book called the Body Electric, and by
Can you
something
give an
Robert.
example of such a movement?
Very simple. Like one of them is like we put it up, and then we bring the scapula down and push.
Push up with your hands
Yeah,
to the
it's
sky.
very simple. The movement itself will not be something you would see as anything spectacular, but they're done in a sequence and in a method and a mindset. Again, it's a mind. There's a method of doing it that through a sequence of mental activities that makes it either work or not work. And so
So
I
qigong
definitely
was
felt
one of those
qigong is one of those.
yeah.
Yes. Now, some of those qigong practitioners, and you'll see some of them are tai chi as well. Tai chi is almost like qigong, but they have a claim that it has a martial effect as well. Because I'm interested in the martial arts, so they believe that those some of those exercises that can be used as a in combat, and they believe that the energy that you're now circulating can be you can you can it can be used for combat. So I met people who so one of these guys on the net is in Singapore. I think he passed away now. Um, Grandmaster, I forget his name now. I reached out to him from his YouTube channels and all the YouTube channels that you see that he'll be like, ha! And these people would be like flying off, and then like they would hit the wall. And some of his videos, they put because people were hitting the wall, they were flying away so far that they would put a mattress on the wall, okay, and so that they when they hit the wall, they won't hurt themselves. So anyway, like I got down to Singapore, and the person who was emailing me, like responding to my inquiries, ended up being his great grandson. And I met him at this market in Singapore, and I was like, man, I've been following through. Like I was like, I'm really interested, right? I'd like to be a student if you would allow, but I would love to see the master. So he's like, okay, and then you have to be very polite, like any culture, and show humility, and you're not this arrogant. You're not like, I don't want to fight the master. I want to learn. So over the course of my interactions with him, I'm staying at now hostels and trying to get by and trying to speed the process up, but get through the hoops. So he finally took me to after like a couple of meetings, and he knew I'm not a reporter. I'm not trying to expose him or anything. He took me to this place in Singapore where the grandmasters, I think his cousin was a practitioner, and he goes, the grandmaster doesn't see anybody, but this is the senior student. This is the senior practitioner who teaches all the classes. So I walked into the door and I looked at it was like a room, maybe like 10 by 10 room, and I saw on the wall a mattress, and I was like, I'm in the right place. This is it.
Yeah.
So, you know, the grandmaster comes in, and not the grandmaster, his I think his cousin, the senior level guy,
Senior master.
the senior master, right? And we talked, and they talk like they talk a lot, and I'm like, okay, but I just like to touch hands, right? So, at some point, he kind of he let his student touch hands with me. He didn't touch hands with me himself, and we were doing this thing, and like I'm waiting for it to happen, and he did a couple of like, and I was like, just from basic taekwondo stuff, you're like able to deflect stuff, and it became suddenly awkward, right? I'm like, what do I do now? Like I'm here. They're trying out of good. They're trying to show me what they said they can do, but it's not working. And then I just
Oh,
I
so
just
he
have to.
tries to make you fly away. He's like,
I'm like, oh wait, deflect this, uh, and uh, I just had to basically say that I think I need a little bit more time to develop my own energy. Right, I'm probably not sensitive enough, and thank you very much, and kind of quietly, respectfully exit the situation. But yeah, that's not combat. If you think your art is going to be used in combat for people who are convinced and are compliant and are maybe are sensitive, that's not a combat art. And so I had many experiences with people like this.
Okay, so that was one of the fake ones, huh?
Yeah, that was one of the fake ones. And then the ones that were in the middle here, um,
You don't know what to make of it.
I saw people. I'm going to tell you that I witnessed it myself. I I I witnessed people, masters who uh, touched paper and burnt it in front of me. They were able to touch me and send like electricity to the point that my jaws were shaking through my body. Um, were able to point at things and leave um, like burnt marks on them, even if it's on my body or someone else's body. I've seen it, witnessed it myself, and spent lots of time with them, um, trying to understand what they're doing, taking in their self healing exercises, and it's hard to make sense of it. Like, is it real? Are is there some? Are they? Is it an elaborate trick? Could be. It's skeptical mind has to be there. I'm not, but at the same time, I did see it, and sometimes they do say that the
And what are
that
they claiming this is because of?
they
That they're
believe it's
able to
because
do this.
the exercises that they taught me, the qigong exercises that we're learning. They said if you practice it enough and harness this qi enough, then it can be transmitted.
Oh, sorry.
And
What we're talking about is chi this whole time.
qi, that's right.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I yeah
And
I
throughout your South Asian, well, no, this isn't
this
South
is
or
this is China
Eastern.
now.
This is China. Okay, so
Yeah.
throughout your Oriental Asian experience, it was mostly about chi
It was about healing.
healing.
So it was about qigong, uh, qi gong, right? And so what I've taken from a lot of these teachers is that yes, it's very effective for the self healing. There is qi, and there is this um, uh, healing aspect that you can use, and you can even at times have enough of this healing and healthy movement of chi that you people can touch others and healing can occur between these two bodies. Can it be for combat? I i'm not sure. I've seen incredible things, and with time, inshallah, I will reveal what how to what extent they were and what they weren't. um because some I definitely see as false, but I also don't like to say that if because I haven't um, hacked it or know everything, that it's not true either.
Yeah.
Because there could be people who are real. See, in China, there's a lot of people who are. I wanted to do this for myself as a Muslim, so I couldn't find Muslims. They don't let other cultures and other people always learn their family secrets, right? But so I wanted to be able as a Muslim to honestly say whether this stuff works or not. Because if you leave it to somebody who may be doing it for a quick buck, then they could have ulterior motives and stuff. So uh, I didn't want to believe them immediately. At the same time, I don't want to dismiss them as well. Um,
What was the more credible stories that you have with your experiences in China and
mm,
these lands?
Yes.
the their adhans.
Yeah.
Okay, can we come back to it?
Yeah, yeah. Is it?
It looks like the iqama is about to happen. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're trying to build more studios, hire more people, and create more shows that you guys will love and enjoy. If you guys want to invest in us and support this work, then go on patreon.com/Ansari podcast and support us today. I'm loving, alhamdulillah, mashallah, this conversation. I think it's been very beneficial for myself as well as the viewers. Alhamdulillah. I think where we left off for prayer
Yeah.
was that you went on a journey to discover healing and
Yeah.
possibly self discovery.
For sure.
What did you find in this journey?
Yeah. So what I remember you asked me also before I left, and I did want to kind of summarize this much for you that healing. So as a physician, you if you take your profession very seriously, and I do take my work very seriously, that I've considered on a spectrum, right? And on the far end of the spectrum, of the body's abilities to heal and even harm is projection of energy um, into somebody and to use it as combat. I have not been convinced that that's true, even though I won't say everything that I'm not aware of doesn't exist. So I'll keep a skepticism, but I have not seen it. No, I can't replicate it. I have seen it, and some I've seen as false, and some I've seen as true, but
Oh,
I
wait,
can't
wait, wait. So,
replicate it.
so you have seen it actually work? Because you gave an example of when it didn't work, but
No, I
you're
told you
saying
that.
outside of YouTube videos, though, you saw it in
Of course,
person
in
work?
person. In person, I lived in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, for over a year, and I travel. I used to travel 8 hours, 8 hours every weekend. Okay, 4 hours there, 4 hours back, to learn 30 seconds of instruction from this my shifu, and he uh, demonstrated to me. I saw him burn burn things with his finger
No, no, I'm talking about like,
to
blowing someone away towards a mattress on the wall.
well, the effect of this level of chi when he touched me with it, it was people holding me on different parts where I told you, it was so much electricity going in my body, going through my body.
Right.
Same time, he would be able to touch somebody and um, they would fall. They would get burnt. Um, uh, Hitting a rock and just breaking it with your finger. I personally was there for these things,
Wow. Subhanallah.
and I
But,
and I
but
and I, and I studied with him for a year, learned Mandarin for it.
wow.
But what I'm saying is that level of skepticism remains because of various things I can't answer until you are able to control every single factor to understand how this is working and whether or not it's true. You could be duped. It's just we have to accept the possibility of that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I completely agree.
but that is on the far spectrum of what I've seen and witnessed personally. That I'm not sure of to what extent that's possible. On the other spectrum, on the same spectrum, the other end of that spectrum is, can that level of energy of self development be used to heal yourself? This I am 100% convinced of. And I've seen it. I've seen it in my practice. I've seen it with my patients. I've seen it in various other forms of medicine. And scientific trials confirm this as well. You can call it the power of belief, placebo, self healing, qigong, whatever it is. But I employ it. I use it. I see it. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And then in the middle, there's various things that
And what
may
is
or
it?
may not be true.
What's the spiritual healing that you learned from Chi?
Well, so it's about mindset, right? It's about getting to a place of certainty in your healing, going thinking about your healing and about healing happening inside your body, and being comfortable and happy and content, um, because everything works better. Your body heals faster, and you're able to overcome things that other human beings can't overcome. Your resilience is that it's your mind, the neuroplasticity of your mind can change with your thinking. The chemicals in your body that are released
So
change.
how do you achieve this? This sounds wonderful, but how do you actually do it? Has it been everything that we've been talking about?
And more.
And
So like
more?
for example, qigong is one of those methods of healing. Homeopathy is a method that uses small infinitesimal doses of substances from the planet, diluted, and you can and there's nothing there. But when people take these remedies, there's no molecular amount possible that's left in that little bit of water or that sugar pellet. And the I've seen incredible amounts of healing come out of these treatments. Um, when you do um, um, when you have a belief and a change of perspective, you can. I've seen, and again, the trials show from just the color of the pill. You know, the yellow pill will help you. It has a better effect on depression than the red pill. The blue pill will help you sleep better. The packaging of the pill just will itself will have better effects. There's stories, and whether or not they're true or not, but I've witnessed them through enough confirmation that a patient could be told this particular therapy is beneficial for cancer, and his tumor shrinks, and then he's uh, later told that, oh no, that therapy wasn't working, and right in the middle of all his progression, he immediately declines and dies. The power of the mind is completely true. Um, Among that is dua, right? Your the Prophet ﷺ making dua and blowing on water, or your grandmother reading Quran and blowing on something for you. Yes, there's something absolutely energetic uh, here in healing that we don't understand. It is all the world of energetic healing that manifests in different ways, either through the mind or through water or through prayer or through company or through perspective change. This is mind body medicine.
And does the soul enter this at all? Or I think you prefaced this in the beginning by saying you are not sure of the soul.
No, not me. Current modern medicine doesn't believe in the soul. We as Muslims do. Our understanding of as Muslims, I mean, at least some of the ulama would say
No,
that
no, I'm saying like you're
yeah,
not sure of where the soul's placement is in this treatment,
yes,
or okay.
yeah, because this is the ghaib, but we know that it's there. I have an entire chapter on this, and my chapter 4 in the book discusses this. But
But it can be two separate, treatments. Soul food could be what Allah has brought down for us, the dhikr of Allah, the remembrance of Allah, the
yes,
worship of Allah. And then, but what you're discovering here is the mind body. And together they complete the whole experience here. So it
I
could
actually
be, yeah.
yes. So ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Yes, of course, that there isn't anything but like the remembrance of Allah that will be the peace and tranquility and serenity for the hearts. Um, that is, uh, it's hand in hand in your my what I'm trying to describe as mind body medicine. Once you have certainty in these in the hadith that you had mentioned, and that Allah is having a good opinion of Allah, and that there's something good happening, and that He has a plan, and you're um, and it's all is khair, then um, that's not I'm not saying that's just a part of healing. I'm saying this is the deepest form of healing. This is the central. You have to be able. If you can hack this, then you've hacked health. You are going towards the best version of yourself. Without it, we're incomplete, and every problem will occur. Once we grow up, well, as soon as you live life, you realize there's tons of problems, man. This life isn't all hunky dory, right? So we have to have this, and to know it, you could say the research shows that placebo works, or mind body this helps, and I want to use it. I want to use this to my advantage as a doctor. I want to tell people this just for the cure. Okay, but we also have to we want to know that the things that we believe in, are they true? So it's not enough to just believe that a force is going to heal me when I reach it when I'm sick. To the person who has a complete conviction in his Lord, and he knows he's there, and that this illness is there's some good in it for him, is on a trajectory of health, and even if he um, uh, if Allah's if the time is written that this is going he's going to die, it he won't have suffered. He'll only have been rewarded through that time. And so this to bring people to this level of understanding, you have to have your connection with Allah sorted out. It's really really important, and that's all part of this level of medicine that I believe is the deepest form of medicine.
And that's outside of chi. This is before you even get into different healings. You start off with that fundamental for healing.
I believe it's even deeper than chi.
Hmm.
So chi movement, energy movement in the body, that's somehow connected to your life force, to your ruh, is activated through these practices, that through meditation and through breathing and through qigong and these things. But you can activate that through other methods as well, like I mentioned. Just um, making dhikr, right? Your different practices of remembering Allah and the recitation of the Quran and all these, they also have an effect, but it's still more. There are effects and hidden secrets in the times of the prayer, in the fasting, and all those things have an effect. But there's a special link between the mind that once your convictions and your certainty increases, then the effects are deeper. So I'm saying that this is the deepest level. They're also there. They're in the spectrum on this side. They're not we're not talking about physical medicine anymore.
Hmm.
But uh, I've
And do you think we've so far covered all levels of healing?
um, we in
Because
this in our podcast meeting.
yeah, because we've talked about the acupuncture hijama level. We talked about the chi level. We've talked about the deep spiritual aqidah, actually, the
Okay.
principle that you're in cord to
Yeah, and there's lots of different things in between. Uh, as you get to more physical, right?
nature and sunlight and
Right, and then
food,
and exercise and
exercise.
manipulation, and then surgical procedures and chemical
Even
medicine.
modern medicine, yeah,
Of
chemical
course,
medicine. Then
of course.
that's
Everything is on the spectrum, and
yeah.
everything must be used in its right place. If you have a appendicitis, okay, your appendix is, you need an emergency medical procedure to take it out before it blows and infects your infects your organs and stuff. This is the munasib place of Islamic medicine, to go to a hospital. You don't just um, and to have a surgical procedure would be correct. You don't just play with herbs or something like that at the time, or um, or just to make dhikr if you have the option of something that is, we know, needs a intervention. So everything can be Islamic medicine. I'm just talking about, I'm very very interested in the the, the search of healing and health, and I'm I look at things and in their proper place. So that all is Islamic medicine. There's just the more physical areas of it, and the deeper areas I feel have most effect on the chronic illnesses and perspective and longevity and making us the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, I've really been what I've been fascinated by what you're saying, which is everything, honestly. But I've also had the belief of I want to at some point get to a point where I can get a home or a piece of land with multiple Muslims, family
Yeah.
members, loved ones, family friends, and we live this lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's animals, there's nature, there's walkability, there's
That's right.
socialness,
A pattern
and
language. You have to look at this book, okay? And you have a good platform. If you throw this idea out, especially in the states where you're from, um, Muslims could reach out to you. You guys could get a developer and do these things. And it's much more in grasp. I'm consulting for somebody right now on how they've bought some land and they have a masjid and stuff. They have a builder who's doing some housing development around them, and so I'm trying to help them to implement these principles. There's principles to do this. So you don't make them like just another suburb and just some mega masjid, and then you're just you have soccer moms driving their kids to just Sunday schools or something. Same.
I'm visualizing exactly
Yeah,
what
it's the
you're
same
picturing
stuff.
here.
Yeah, it's like there's better ways to do that. To
It's
have a
suburbia. It's Muslim suburbia. We
yeah,
got to get past that. We got to get to like
yeah.
Muslim village,
We got to think
village
about our carbon footprint
town.
on the planet and how we're destroying it, and then how we can increase not just uh, the social and the financial status of like a vertical mobility for people who are not just at a middle class and getting our sons and our kids into better schools. What about the weakest of us, man? The Prophet ﷺ was concerned about the most destitute and vulnerable. So for that, we have to think of bigger problems, and not just our families and our middle class lifestyle. So I believe that this solution is really needed, and it's I'd be happy to talk to you anytime about this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very very, but I'm looking at it as a point of view from a physician. I'm looking at it as a point of how to have health and healing for everybody who would be there.
Yeah, and I think it does start with first changing our environments and dramatically, especially if we're going to survive in the West. Uh,
Yes.
okay, so if that's step one, what else should someone take from our discussion so far and everything that you've learned from your travels and on healing?
I mean, I don't talk about this with everybody. I do believe, uh, wisdom. I'm after wisdom. And this is my, because people trust me and they're asking me how to help solve their illnesses. This is my professional responsibility as well. And so that's why I'm a lot deeper into this, solving these problems than somebody else. Um, But for more a general audience, for the masses, I believe everyone has got to figure out their certainty in Allah. That's
How do
why
you
I've
do
written the
that?
book. Pardon me.
Yeah, you're the author, and I wanted to mention that you're the author of the Divine for Critical Minds Inquiry into God's Existence.
Mm-hmm.
I got to read the first 46 pages, mashallah. I was hooked, and I was actually trying to scroll and I couldn't. I was like, oh, what?
I'm sorry, man. I
Uh,
thought I gave you access to the whole thing. We gotta find out why that didn't happen. Inshallah.
it's okay.
I'll bring you a copy when I come visit you. Inshallah. Sometime.
Inshallah. That'd be awesome. But yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah. It just basically, I can't take everyone through this whole journey, um, because it's different levels of understanding and wisdom, right? And you gain that over time with age, with travels, experience, family problems. You go through things in your spiritual development. So, of course, that's a lot more fascinating to me because of my what I do. But if somebody, the most general, basic thing that I wish everyone could just come to is, being sure, absolutely sure, that Allah is there and that He has sent us a, a the beautiful example and the life of the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to as a guide, and to be absolutely sure about it. Right now, and I myself have went through this phase, being like unsure, like are our beliefs based in anything that is can be completely relied upon, and is this whole thing just a placebo? Us doing vikid, and is it just, yeah, it works, people liked it as a crutch to believe in, somebody made it up, or belief in a god is irrational, so there's no evidence behind it, it's not well thought out, all this stuff. Like, our Muslims are really confronted with this problem right now in the West. Anyone who goes to university is going to be, especially in the, like, if you're in biology or medicine, STEM sciences, uh, science, technology, engineering, math, then you're going to be this is going to be bothering you, and it's I want to squash this particular hesitation and this uncertainty. it has to be done. You have to close the chapter on that before you can get onto the other beautiful parts of healing. Because if that those doubts remain, then it's you never nothing you can't get anywhere. And I think that's why I believe that atheists have done us a big disservice by kind of acting like they are they genuinely want to know the truth, and they're being the most scientific and the most rational. And I definitely took their claims very seriously and wanted to make sure I was as thorough as possible and skeptical as possible of even Islam. I put it through the ringer in every aspect to make sure that are our beliefs, uh, this belief in Allah, true? Is the Prophet ﷺ, was he who he claimed to be? How can we know whether or not what we have, the information we have, of the Quran, of the Hadith, is it preserved properly? Like, is this real? Or because otherwise I'll walk away from this. And to see it and to have done this for 10 years, I dedicated to making sure, and crossing my t's and dotting my i's. I believe like this is a no-brainer, man. Like, bring me somebody who can now say that this belief in Allah and His mercy and His communication with us as is not real. Once you know this, everything else will fall into place.
And I was gonna say to you that you literally authored something called The Divine for Critical Minds. And based off our discussion and what you hold yourself to in the book, you're a critical thinker. And that's something we learn, and it's a good thing in the
Mm-hmm.
West, is how to
Absolutely.
critically think. How did you, and even through your travels and all your experience,
Mm-hmm.
how did you come to the conclusion that Islam is true or that God exists in the first place? Let's even start with God
That
exists.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's the essence of it, right? I was I grew up in a very like uh, around a lot of like a white suburbia, right? And uh, just had a I had my friends. Everyone we grew up right thinking in the Canadian school system, and I think which was good. And you pinpointed it. It teaches critical thinking, and I I liked the people I was around. I believe that the Prophet ﷺ had a genuine love for people, and um, I I had friends so and I still do. I still have friends from elementary school. So I don't I hold them in high regard, and I uh, I didn't have this kind of like every group does this concept of superiority where we're right and nobody else knows anything. So I considered strongly when many of them told me that they're not sure whether or not God exists, and I myself was went to my local imams and people in my family, and I was like, how do we know this stuff? And people didn't give me good answers. So growing up with this type of thinking, I was like, all right, well, let's see if it's real, then it should be able to stand up on its own legs. I'm not just gonna have faith. Like, why? Like, praying 5 times a day. Coming, like, I got other things to do.
Or
Right?
you at least in your own mind, I want to prove that I have to pray 5 times a day.
Yeah, I want to know if I'm going to devote myself to this. It's got to be real. It's got to be real.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that continued even as a physician. Like, okay, yeah, these things are spiritual exercise are helping patients, but like, is it you know is it actually real? Is God, can you reach out to him and is he will heal you? Does he actually exist, or is this, like atheists will say, is a the flying spaghetti monster?
You know what
I
I think the potency of Islam is from
Yeah.
what you're saying and from my own life, because I think I share a very similar path. I grew up with a lot of white people, same thing. They were very critical. I liked the way they viewed life in many ways, or
Yeah.
at least how much they claimed that they were intellectually honest in their search,
Mm-hmm.
which made me at
Claimed.
least claimed, yes,
Good one.
which at least allowed me as a Muslim to try to find sincerity in my own search.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so potent, I think, about Islam, if all the Islamophobes out there try to answer this question, it's the number one question. What's so potent about Islam? What's potent about Islam is that the more you criticize it, the more you love it.
Yeah.
If you criticize it sincerely, you love it dearly. Like there's no way around it. And
Great.
I actually had like a person that converted to Islam tell me like I'm afraid to think about these things because I'm afraid of what I'll find.
Yeah.
Basically, not trusting that Islam will come back with the right thing, and they want to believe in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, do that. That's exactly what I do, and I fell in love with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And it's and these all these things that the school system taught us about being not being biased and um, trying to identify our biases and be as skeptical and these things, these are healthy. And I have a conviction that anyone who's sincere, who looks at this stuff, looks at the evidence in an as unbiased as possible, will come to know Allah and come to know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was who he claimed to be, and that we can rely on it fully. And that's so liberating, man. It's just, and people need to know this. So, um, and don't bypass, don't shortcut it. Like, oh, again, just like what atheists will do. Oh, that guy's smart and he doesn't believe, or he does believe, then I'm going to do. It's not strong enough. You got to be, and then the practice of the deen, of getting yourself into a the the amal, right, has an effect on your iman and makes it stronger and stronger. So, but you got to make sure you kind of squash the doubts.
Yeah. And I think that's a sneak peek into, inshallah, our next episode, the divine, where I hope we'll discuss your book, the divine
Inshallah.
for critical minds, inquiry into God's existence. I have a lot of questions for you on that, inshallah. Dr. Rehan Zaidi, do you have any final thoughts? That's all the questions I have for you today.
No, alhamdulillah, it was really nice to meet you. Mashallah, I appreciate what you're doing. Um, I would I since once I've come back, I have felt that um, the dunya, right, this creeps up on all of us. But if the sheikhs that I have to thank deeply for the time I spent with them, their uh, their focus on khidmah, serving the vulnerable, the weak, and the effort of dawah was is prominent, and something that I feel since coming back, I felt young people had a lot more energy and enthusiasm that in that regard. I feel it's a little bit weaker since I've come back, and we need people to maybe I feel I think we have some doubts. People Muslims are maybe like hiding and say it's just what I believe. I don't want to talk about it, right? But yeah, man, let's square up to this challenge, bring it on, and we'll dominate.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no ideology out there that we should be afraid of,
That's right.
and there's because there's none of them compete. They just don't compete in the first place. Dr. Rehan Zaidi, thank you so much for
God bless you.
joining the Unstudied podcast. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed. I know I did, and the viewers will, inshallah.
جزاك الله خير. وإياكم.
Thank, and thank you guys for listening to the Unstudied podcast.